Today I'm going to show you some of the upgrades that I've done to my Black Series figures, either using just custom paint jobs and simple things you can do at home, or bringing in head sculpts and other pieces from other customizers. This Ned B custom, I actually did a tutorial for this if you were interested, and I use this technique in a lot of the figures that you'll see today, so go check out that video on my channel if you're curious to go a little bit deeper into this customization. In this case, using techniques called dry brushing and dark washing, just getting the figure to look a little less yellow and bring out a lot of those metallic tones. Next we have a head sculpt from Nuno. All customizers that I mentioned in this video will be linked below as always, but this just goes to show how important a proper head sculpt is on a figure. The original Jango Fett was just not a great looking figure. I didn't do anything else to this other than switching out the head. Getting into custom head sculpts is dangerous because once you get one, then all of a sudden all your other figures just look so much worse, and then it's pretty addictive. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, then you know that I have a campaign against soft goods, and I just don't think that they look great at a 1/12 scale, and so I replaced the Heroes of Endor figures here with some sculpted plastic from different figures. The Han Solo cloak is from a Joker figure, the Leia is Jyn Erso's cloak, and then this Luke Skywalker is actually the Cal Kestis poncho. I repainted all of these with an airbrush. Of course it limits the articulation, you can't put them on the speeder bikes, but that's not how I plan to have these displayed. Now we're going to look at the opposite, in which I replaced a plastic cloak with soft goods. This is a Mandalorian helmet and cape from OT Customs. Of course the new Black Series Mandalorian figure that we're getting will have an updated helmet and an updated soft goods cloak. This cape is wired and probably of a higher quality material than we're going to get from the Black Series, but it also costs more than the figure itself, so you kind of get what you pay for. I have the Figuarts and the Mafex Mandalorians. I have every 12 scale Mando that's come out, and so far the Black Series body with the custom helmet is my favorite look so far. Hey, just a reminder, maybe you want to subscribe, now would be a great time. This is the standard Bespin Luke body with the head from the comic book Luke. I just think it has a little bit of a sharper face print than the Dagobah Luke, even though it's the same head sculpt. The hand is from the Marvel Legends Ned and Peter Parker 2-pack, and I found that changing out the hand that's not holding the weapon into just kind of a more relaxed hand just adds so much personality to the figures, and I think really improves the overall look. I do have to admit that this hand looks a little bit large. If you didn't notice that already, you're gonna notice it now. It looks better on the shelf though, and so that's how I currently have it displayed. For this next figure, I took the Black Series Clone Wars Anakin, I repainted the armor, I did a dry brush on that to give it that metallic effect. I also did a dark wash on the clothes, on the blue parts. The cape is from a customizer called BIC Customs, who's unfortunately no longer doing custom capes, but it has these little rubber bands that go over the shoulders there. The cape should technically go underneath the back armor, but that's not really possible since it's all just one piece. And then the head sculpt here is also from Nuno. His Anakins have kind of a younger, more innocent look to them, and I think that kind of suits this Clone Wars appearance since he was a bit younger than he was in Revenge of the Sith. My friend Frederick, who goes by Frederick's Figures on Instagram, did these amazing repaints of the Aayla Secura and Ahsoka Black Series figures. These are just straight repaints of the stock figures. These aren't original heads, and so you can just see how incredible the Black Series sculpts are. This Ahsoka in particular, I think it just looks exactly like Rosario Dawson and even looks way better than the Hot Toys version, which you can't always say for the Black Series, and Frederick just did an amazing job bringing out that likeness. Next we have a custom wired cape for Moff Gideon. This is from Fine Scale Atelier, who is also on Instagram. I also used some white paint to bring out the details on the Darksaber, since the one that came with Moff Gideon originally was very dull and gray. Here I replaced the 3 commas, which are like the skirt pieces, as well as Rex's poncho, with plastic sculpts instead of soft goods. The commas are 3D printed, and then the poncho on Rex is Cal Kestis' poncho yet again, and the heads here are by Fett Clone. This is the Figuarts Boba Fett. I figured out, I think, why I don't really like soft goods, and at the end of the day, these are artistic interpretations of these characters. You know, if you blew up a life-size action figure and put it in a scene with actual characters in Star Wars, it would look ridiculous, so it's like these aren't realistic to begin with, and so I just think that it's important to stick with one particular style and medium, rather than like switching halfway through, especially when it's like a singular garment of clothing, like that Leia Yavin ceremony where half her dress is plastic and half of it is fabric. It just looks weird in my eyes, which is why I created these sculpted Jedi robes that are available to download and print on my Patreon. These are resin printed, and then I just repainted the actual arms that come with the figures to match the robes. I grew up with the prequels and the figures from that era, which had the Jedi robes sculpted on, and I just realized you can see inside the robes to see the part that I didn't paint, because you're not normally able to see that part of the figure when it's on my shelf. I've joked before that the back of my customs are between me and God, but in this case, with the turntable, you all get to see how far my patience goes. So not all of these are going to be Black Series, but these are actually Bandai
model kits. We are getting both of these characters re-released in the Black Series at proper scale, but until then, the only way to get these in the proper scale has been the Bandai model kits. In this case, we see them brilliantly weathered by Frederick. In this case, we see R5 with the kind of rusty Tatooine sand look, and then R2 with the Dagobah mud effect here. I have him on my shelf next to the Luke and Yoda training 2-pack, and so it just looks totally appropriate in that setting. So Hasbro put out an all-black KX security droid from the Jedi Survivor game that came with the new backpack and the Electro Staff. Unfortunately, the characters in the game didn't end up looking like that. They had kind of this greenish beige color to them. So this is just a straight repaint of the Hasbro one. I used a color called Hemp, and then because the undercoat of these are already black, I actually used sandpaper to do the weathering here. I'd never used sandpaper to weather before because usually it would just rip off whatever paint was underneath as well, but in this case it looked perfect and I just think it came out so good. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I bought this Iden Versio head sculpt from Fett Clone, but I just think it's so cool how you can take a figure that just like, it was just a generic trooper and just like turn it into an entirely different character just by using a head sculpt. I repainted the Bad Batch Cad Bane Braca figure. I always have trouble saying that one. The original figure, the face was just like a little bit too blue. I think the eyes were a little too small, and there just wasn't much detail on the chest, and so Frederick painted that face for me, and then I did all of the body, dark wash and weathering on a lot of the metal pieces, and then just a total repaint of that chest plate, because you can see the original just had like very little detail in that area, and I just think it looks so much better. And then the Toto 360 is actually 3D printed. This next one's super simple. I basically just added a pauldron to the Jedi Fallen Order Trooper. These are how they mostly look in the game, and if you have a few of these, it's nice to just set one aside, or like make one stand out as the commander. And again, I replaced that hand with an open hand here, and it looks like he's just kind of like holding his balance. It gives the whole figure some weight, gives his weapon some weight. It just makes the whole thing feel a little bit more realistic versus having that clenched C-grip hand. For this next one, I took the orange Black Series Aura Sing. It just repainted up the body, made it black, repainted the leather to make it a little bit darker, and then I put some tape and just dabbed a little bit of paint around the eyes, careful not to touch the actual eyeballs themselves to paint them black. This is pretty simple. If you're looking into getting into painting figures, this would be a great one to practice on. It's a pretty cheap figure and it's kind of hard to mess up because it's all the same color. Next, I took the skirt from the Dark Ray and I put it on the Asajj Ventress because I didn't like that weird velvety skirt that she came with. I know a lot of people really liked it, and you know, that's fine if you preferred it. I just like all my figures to be consistent in their materials. And I haven't experienced any sort of hindrance in articulation here for lightsaber wielding poses because of that nice slit down the side of the skirt. And next we have the 3 Black Series Night Owls. I did a dark wash and dry brushing on all of the armor and a lot of the leather on these figures. You can notice it more on the Bo-Katan than on the Koska Reeves. The head sculpt on the Axe Woves was repainted by Tim's Toys. This is just the standard Black Series one. And then the Bo-Katan head was painted by Uncle Sam's Cantina, and then I painted the body myself. I just think she looks incredible. We have a new Season 3 Fett Clone head sculpt of Bo-Katan coming in, so I'm excited about that, and I'll probably have both my Season 2 and Season 3 Bo-Katans on the shelf because I just love them both. That's all for today's video. Just another reminder to subscribe or like this video if you have not already. Thank you guys all for watching as always. I hope you learned something today. Maybe you want to give one of these a try for yourself or check out one of the customizers that I have tagged in the description. Either way, thank you all for watching and I'll see you next time.